Scale degrees are basically what they mean. Is basically we're just going to be breaking down everything into number form, which means, we talked about in the previous episode about key signatures, and now we're going to show how the structure is for a major scale and a minor scale. Minor scales are going to be a little different, but for this episode, I will be demonstrating what a full breakdown of what a whole scale, what a major scale looks like. So, if you've ever seen a major scale being played on a piano, this is basically the best way to do it. I use the key of C major since it doesn't have any sharps or flats in it. So I'm just going to go by the step, since you already know that C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C makes a whole entire scale. So, and then we're going to address what a whole step and a half step is, because it's basically a breakdown of what it looks like on a piano. So, right now, like I said before, if you got a piano in front of you, if you see from C to D, you see that there are black keys in the middle of C and D. If you see C and D, that's a whole step. And D to E is a whole step. Now, when you play E and F on a piano, there are no black keys in the middle of those keys, which makes it a half step. And then that's how you can tell the difference between a whole step and a half step, because if this E to F is just a half step. Now D to E is a whole step, but you see D to E, there's a black key in the middle. If you played that black key, that's a half step. So, and then now we're going to get back to F to G is a whole step. And G to A is a whole step. And A to B is a whole step. And then, like I said before about E and F, B and C do not have any black keys in the middle. So it's a half step. And that's how you and that's a full breakdown of a C major scale. Whole, whole, half. Whole, 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 half. Now, when it comes into scale degrees, this is the part where we're going to be putting numbers on each of the notes that are played, the scale degrees. As you already know, C is going to be mainly tonic, because tonic is basically the first note you play on a scale of a key signature. D is supertonic. E is median. 4 is subdominant. 5 is dominant. 6 is submediant. 7 is leading tone. And then when you hit back to C, it goes back to tonic again. But I'll tell you, it's going to be in a higher pitch. Now, if you reversed it, going in the opposite direction, you're going to be saying leading tone, submediant, dominant, subdominant, median, supertonic, and tonic again. So that way it be in a lower octave. So we're going to be talking more about octaves in this segment, but I'll be getting more in that into the detail. But for now, we're trying to understand why there's like numbers on when you're trying to compose music. So basically, you get a full idea where one in Roman numerals come from, like the first and second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh. Now, do you have to tell you one thing about the leading tone? In minor key signatures, especially if you're dealing with A natural minor, the seventh scale degree will be subtonic because it's lowered a half step. In harmonic minor, in A harmonic minor, the seventh scale degree is raised by a half step and it will become a leading tone because if you played a G to an a G to an A is a whole step. But if you make it as a G sharp, it makes it a half step, which makes it a leading tone to A because A is the tonic in A minor. So that gives you an idea of where subtonic and leading tone comes from. Only subtonic is only used in minor keys. And now we're gonna have this other chart here that illustrates what it looks like on piece of paper here, on a piece of music. Basically, I wrote down the whole C major scale out in bars and measures, and it gives you an idea what I mean. So, it also gets you ready for understanding the intervals, which I'll be addressing into next onto this segment. And it's supposed to be, will give you an idea of why we got those major thirds or perfect fourths or perfect fifths. And basically, it just gives you an idea of why we start putting Roman numerals on each note now, because I'm trying to give you an idea to progress into making triads and chords. So let's go ahead and get ourselves started on intervals. So, intervals, what are they? Well, intervals is just exactly what it means. Intervals is a difference between pitch and sound. What I mean is a difference between the pitch between two sounds, high or low. Well, and here's the other reason why it is called an interval. It means like it's very big, big space, big space, big, big. They can also be described as horizontal, linear, or melodic. I want to get back onto this. Horizontal, linear is another word for melodic. Don't let that mix that up with y'all, okay? I was gonna be like, it's more of a way of saying it scientifically. Um, it. I think the reason why they were doing it is because they were trying to make it look like a graph calculator. If you ever had one of those Texas Instrument calculators in school or in school now, the Texas Instruments with the graph calculator with the X and Y axis, The x-axis is another way of saying it's horizontal. So if you think about it like that, x is horizontal and linear, goes goes in one direction. Boom, boom. Whereas, I mean, like they were also talking about the vertical as well. I mean, vertical is y. So basically, if you're doing something like harmonic, it's basically as all these kind of words like horizontal, linear for melodic, and vertical for harmonic intervals, which is basically harmonic is another way for saying chords. So like I was saying before about the chord building and all, with the melodic, horizontal and vertical, at least I was just getting into a little briefing what they were trying to do here. They were trying to make it look more mathematical, or X and Y axis, so that way you'd be like understanding the direction of flow of melody and harmony in a key in music. So yeah, I mean like it's just don't let it get you distraught in any way. I mean like I was it's probably the best way I've ever broke down about intervals. I mean, so if you ever see that kind of word like linear or horizontal, it's just another way of saying melodic. It's just like that's what it is. And if you see something like vertical, it means harmonic. So it just don't let the words fool you. It's just harmonic and melodic is the only things you gotta are the only two words to think of when you're thinking about intervals. At least I went into full detail on that. And yes, I did go into full detail with the X and Y axis with the graph calculator. But can you imagine if you were playing a piece of music? Because basically, if you think about it, it's like two-dimensional. But if you were adding more parts to it, could be like a Z. So if you think about it, one day that would be kind of interesting to make a 3D cube of a music score. It'd be like X and Y would be like your harmonics, and your X's would be your melody, but the Z would be like all the musical instruments. So I mean, can you imagine that? So ahead of thinking right there, but it gives you an idea of what I mean with the cube. But for now, we're just dealing with melodic and harmonic right now, which is basically your X and Y axis. That was basically what they were trying to do with the whole entire thing with that, the whole entire wording. On this next one,